Hi, this is Lori Livingston. I play Skrull Agent on WandaVision in credit, and you are watching Pop Culture with Pat.
I was sent by an old friend of your mother's. He heard you've been grounded. He'd like to meet with you.
Where?
Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. Today we got a special guest on the show. She has done modeling across the world. She recently just became an author with the release of her first book. And you might know her from a couple things, one project, Captain Marvel, and also WandaVision, which was recently the #1 TV show in the world. Please welcome Lori Livingston to the show. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Pat. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
So I wanna start things off because we'll get to Marvel and stuff like that. But I actually want to start things off by I mentioned you recently just released your first like book, and it was a kid's book, and I just wanted to ask you a little bit about that. So just how did that project come about? And the title of the book is "But Beauty Wasn't Within Me." How did that just come about?
I wrote the book actually 8 years ago. It was just kind of something I started as a poem and just kind of going through a tough time in my life at that time as a professional model and just kind of figuring out, how far did I want to go as a model. So I remember just kind of writing this from my heart, and as I wrote it, I just shared it with a few of my model friends and they were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like this is a really good thing, and I'm like, it's just kind of something I did. And decided maybe I should make this bigger. Maybe I should make it a book. So a friend of mine, we sat together for like a week and we did all the illustrations, put everything together, and literally broke the poem down into a book.
Wow. So this
So
was
we have
all done within a week?
within a week, we literally drew every illustration. Like I actually drew the front cover. I drew that myself. And then my friend went behind and he kind of made it digital and, made it a little more polished. But we literally, yeah, we sat like we didn't leave the house. So I'm talking day in, day out
Yeah.
for of just this book. We wrote it and finished it. Yeah.
Yeah, by the way, the cover art too. I thought the cover art was gorgeous. So I mean, that's
Yeah.
awesome. And
Thank you.
I mean, that's wild. Though, even though it was like you said, like it was all day, still just to bang that out within like a weeks period time. I mean, that's pretty crazy. What was this is like your first book that you released. What was would you say like the biggest challenge of bringing this project from just kind of like thoughts and the initial like poems like you thought from bringing it to that to life and getting released?
I thought it would be like the people, because the characters that are in the book are actual real people. So I went to them first and just kind of let them know, hey, look, I kind of told a little bit about our childhood, because it is a true story. It's based on me. It's my childhood basically, and all the events are real. Pretty much just what I went through. So these were my cousins and my best friend, at the time. So I thought it would be a tough time kind of getting them to be on board with it, but they actually loved it. They actually started crying, in some cases, like, oh my God, that's awesome. So, but the hardest part was actually publishing. It was getting it published and getting people to kind of, see my vision. I had to put it to rest for a few years and just kind of put it on hold as my career continued. I was living overseas, but once I came back and the pandemic hit last year, it was like, let's bring. I called my friend, the one we did the book together. His name is Tyrone. He's the illustrator listed on the book. I called him up. I was like, let's finish this book. We did it. We're done. Let's get this thing, rolling. So the hardest part was definitely the publishing.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would imagine just like especially for like a first time, like author, like a book, I imagine that's probably one of the more like challenging things, but I can see like what you're saying, getting the permission from like the different people as well. But it's crazy. I mean, this obviously this whole, last year has been a whirlwind for everybody. But when you look at it too, there's also some of these like silver linings, like in this case, you got a chance to go back and revisit this project and get to actually bring it to light. So in a way, like there was definitely, a lot of bad stuff that's like, that happened, but there's some pretty cool things that have happened. So it's awesome that you got a chance to revisit this and then share it with the rest of the world.
Absolutely. I'm glad. I mean, it's like 8 years, like I said, in the making. So to see this tangible and like just to know people around the world are reading this book right now, this is something I've been staring at that cover for years. And now you guys get to stare at that cover.
Yeah,
I'm just
no, and it's doing really well too. I've seen like your post and stuff like that. So I mean, how for something that you have been working on for 8 years, now, and it's finally come out. How rewarding is that to finally see that project and then get released, but also getting like the recognition that it's getting right now?
Yes, it debuted at the number one new release on Kindle, on Amazon Kindle. It was number 11 for children's books, and then it was like number 33 or something in children's books around the country. Like I'm literally floored by this. A lot of people are like, "Oh, you're a Black author now," and I'm like, I didn't really do it for necessarily because I'm a Black woman. I did it because I'm a woman. Period. I have a story to tell. So I'm just glad. Like I said, people are really into the book, and that's what you can ask for. That's what you can ask for.
And
People
congratulations on that. It must, like I said, it must be, so rewarding as far as
it,
just like putting that out there and getting like that feedback. So congratulations on that.
thank you.
And I know initially, you started out modeling and kind of had made the transition now, to acting, and you've been doing that for a little bit. Can you just talk a little bit about that transition from like modeling and what kind of got you interested, to want to go into acting in the first place?
Marvel.
That's a good answer.
No, all jokes aside, I've been a professional model for 20 years. I started out in New York City, of course, on HSN on QVC. So I have a fan base from that already. I literally have people who remember me from back in like the early 2000s, late 90s, 2000s, like, oh my God, I've been with you since you've been, So a lot of people remember my start. But during the course of my modeling career, I always wanted to do acting. So I was doing commercials and little things here and there, little projects here and there. But my focus and my income was modeling. But I saw the movie X-Men.
Oh, yeah.
Ah, I saw X-Men and I saw Rebecca Romaine Stamos. Remember her? She was the original Mystique.
Yep.
You remember?
Yep.
And of course, she was what? A supermodel. Oh, mind blown. Like when I saw her, and I mean, literally, this is not a pitch of, this is a true story. When I saw her and like just the whole model body, the way she walked, the way she moved, I was like, oh my God, that's that's me. And honestly, I knew at that moment, this is what I wanted to do. This is exactly what I wanted to do.
Cool too, because I mean, X-Men was one of the initial, like, it wasn't like the very first, but I would say as far as like projects that really kind of really blown up for Marvel, it was definitely one of the earlier ones. And to make that connection with that character, that's really cool. So so you've always been, it sounds like, always been kind of like a really big like Marvel fan for, it seems like, a while. What,
Absolutely.
like, so you kind of knew about like all these kind of characters and stuff like that. Was it like, did you like read the comics, or was it just kind of like you saw some of the earlier movies and kind of became a fan then?
I have brothers.
Ah,
I have little brothers. So they would, I mean, I'm a tomboy. I'm very much a tomboy. I have my own clothing line. It's called T-Boy Chic, Tomboy Chic. And basically, that's what I've always been. So my brothers used to watch it, both of them, and I would literally be watching it with them. So my oldest brother, he started out, of course, with like, He-Man and, all that stuff in the 80s. Oh my gosh, Voltron and what's my favorite? Transformers.
that's fine. Yeah.
So, like I was watching this stuff anyway with them. And then my younger brother came along and then he brought about, of course, the Ninja Turtles and X-Men and all that. So I'm sitting there watching it with him, So like I, of course, grew to love this stuff, like literally in love with this just as much as they were.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So you kind of were growing. I mean, that's what I grew up on too, is a lot of that, kind of stuff like the Transformers, like you said, Voltron and stuff like that. So okay, so
Thundercats. I forgot.
yeah. So you, from a very young age, you were kind of just like brought up with this like background. So that's cool.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Now your journey with the MCU in particular, you know, you're not just like Marvel, but your journey began with, you know, Captain Marvel, which some people might not be like familiar with. Can you just talk about getting that role and just like the overall experience, you know, working like on that movie?
Basically, I started out when I came to Hollywood. I left Paris, France. I lived in France as a model, and I left France. They were starting to have a lot of those bombings. You know, remember a few years back they were having a lot of those. So I was living there at that time,
Yeah.
and of course, I was not going to die in France. Like I was just like, I don't know what this is. You know, Lori's out, gotta go. You know, I'm ready to go home now.
Yeah.
So I came back to America after 2 years of living over there. And of course, you don't go back home. You know, like once you kind of live abroad, you can't just go back to where you started. So I moved to Los Angeles. When I got here, of course, they saw a professional model. So they were like, you're not an actor, you're a model, blah, blah, blah. So I had to cultivate who I wanted them to see. And I knew for me, I always wanted to be like a villain. Like I always wanted to be like the assassin, the bad girl, the villain, the one who kicks your butt, like what I was watching as a kid. So they didn't see that. Hollywood didn't quite see that. Hollywood saw a model, you know, and they were, oh, you're pretty. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I can fight. Like, you know, like, come on. And they just weren't buying it. So I had to create that for them. So what I started doing was I started showing up in TV shows like Kingdom with Nick Jonas and a couple like the MMA fighters. I got trained by Joe Daddy Stevens. Then from there, I just kind of ventured into some short films where I was stunts. So for a little while in Hollywood, I was doing stunts. That's how I got discovered with Marvel. So there was a casting director, and she knew that I was more of like into the stunts at that point in my life, in my career. So she was like, you know, would you mind doing something like it's really gritty? You're going to be like in prosthetics, you know, you're going to be in it all day long. Like, you know, I know you're really pretty, but you know, I'm like, heck yeah, like let's do it, you know. So I didn't know it was Marvel. I didn't know what it was. I just knew it was like sound gritty and dirty. Let's do it. So I showed up, and it was literally Marvel. We shot Captain Marvel for like a year. So for one solid year, I was like sworn to silence. I could say nothing. I could do nothing, and I was a Skrull. I was literally the original Skrull. So there's Talos, and then there's Seren, you know, the wife, and then there's the baby that they have a child. But then there were the 9 refugees, and those were the ones that were in the actual spaceship that you saw the scene where Captain Marvel comes and she plays ping pong with the child, which was actually an adult woman, not a child. But I was one of the original Skrulls. So when Marvel decided to bring the Skrulls to the big screen, I was one of them. So I'm the official African American woman, only African American woman to be the original Skrull. I was also a Torfan in that movie. So when they went to go battle in the very first beginning, where they went to battle in that country, or not a country, not it was a planet that they went to, right? Because I'm always wanting to say country. It's a planet that they went to, and they were fighting. I was one of the Torfan people fighting there, fighting against her. I was one of them as well because of the stunts.
Yeah.
Also, I was also a Lori Hala. So if you see the movie in the first 5-10 minutes ish, where she's with Jude Law in the subway in the metro,
Mhm.
I'm standing right behind her. You see my face. So I'm all through that movie. People have no idea, you know, because I was literally 3 different creatures, but primarily I was a Skrull.
Was it was it challenging as far because you were in multiple different roles? So was it challenging to go from like one role, one like different like creature to like the next, or was that a pretty seamless like transition for you?
Uh, I mean, at that point, I was so like honored to be a part of anything Marvel. You know, like this was my childhood coming to life for me. You know, so it was amazing. After a while, like your skin, like during the prosthetics, because the actual scroll costume or prosthetic is actually 6 pieces. So you put that on like day in, like I would come in, sit in the chair like 3 in the morning. I'd wake up at like 2 hours, 3 hours later, and I'd be green, you know? So like that part started to kind of wear on you after a while, because it was just like I said, we shot for a year. So it was day in, day out of your face being constantly covered in this. So each creature required less prosthetics, which made it better, you know. So once I became a Torfan, like the Torfan was just like the top of your head, and the rest of it was your face. And then, of course, the lower Hala, where you actually see my face. I have nothing on. I literally just have makeup on. You see my face. And the director at that time instructed me to kind of give Brie Larson, which was Captain Marvel, to give her kind of like a dirty look, you know. So if you do check that out in the scene, you'll see me in the first.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
actually visit it again, definitely. Now,
yeah.
and that's funny. So you said so like you kind of got the hard part as far as like all the prosthetics with like the scroll and stuff like that, and then after that, it just kind of got a little bit easier from
With
there.
that.
I was going to ask you about the prosthetics and stuff like that. Was this like your first time as far as like having like prosthetics and stuff like that on you?
No, actually, prior to doing Captain Marvel, I was in the movie Bright with Will Smith.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was a creature then too. Hollywood just doesn't like my face. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But when I did that, I was an orc. So if you saw the movie Bright, they had it was Will Smith, and then his co-star and his partner in the movie was an orc.
Yep.
So one of the female orcs, like it was like a rock star scene or rock band scene, and we were like in a mosh pit, and so we were in there, and basically I was one of the girlfriends to the gang members that was in there. So I have a mask on. In that case, that was easy. That was literally just pull on mask. But when you're covered up in it, your skin is living and breathing. So your skin kind of starts to believe it's suffocating. Your
Yeah.
body's, it's like, oh my God, I can't breathe. Even though your nose is, clear, your mouth is, you can clearly breathe. Your skin feels like it's suffocating. So that was
Yeah.
first time.
I was gonna say, yeah, I mean, so that's good. So you kind of had some experience before going, into this. And because I was gonna say, I can imagine, especially being on set for, hours on end and you're in all these like the different prosthetics and stuff like that. I imagine that could be pretty challenging. So at least you kind of got broken into it before you did like the Captain Marvel like movie.
Yes, I was prepared.
Yeah.
So they don't like to give you, if you've never done prosthetics, they don't like to throw a new face in there, because you can technically freak out, and it's not even you freaking out. It's like your body kind of kicks into this instinct type deal. So Hollywood is always going to ask you first, like, hey, have you done this before?
Mhm.
Are you, so yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, you probably wouldn't want to throw someone in there. It's like, hey, we'll just jump into this full body like outfit with prosthetics and stuff for hours. So that makes
Like
sense.
the only thing your skin is showing is like your hands or something.
Yeah, exactly. And how? I mean, because you said you're very familiar with like that you've been a fan of like Marvel and stuff for like a while. How familiar were you with like the scrolls specifically? And did you have to do any kind of like research or like did you prepare like a certain way for that that role?
I didn't at the time for Captain Marvel. I didn't. I literally like because everyone kind of tells you everything on set. So once I got there, like these people are diehard. How do I explain Marvel, the Marvel world? The, the Marvel world loves this stuff more than we do. You know, and they're telling the story and they're invested and they're in, so like I felt like a giant living, breathing toy for them, you know. I felt like we are all their kids, like I'm sorry, all their toys, and
Yep.
they're just kind of with us, here, stand here, do this, The only difference is their toys, Marvel's toys, eat, sleep, breathe, live. So that's the cool part. Like they enjoy this, they love this more than we do as the fans, so they're trying to bring the story to life. Excuse me, I didn't know. So when I got to set, they definitely instructed me and told me, hey, we're bringing this to life. This is the first time ever that they're going to be seen. Like this is a big deal. People have been waiting on the scrolls. They have
Yep.
been waiting. And
Yeah,
I'm like, good? Are we bad? What are we? And they're just like, we'll see. But
yeah, no, that was, and this is just, yeah, just talking about like the original Captain Marvel movie. Cause I, like myself, I remember when I had saw it, with my fiance, like now, like when we had saw the movie, I was like, oh yeah, like the scrolls, like they're bad, like in the comics, and there's like, the secret invasion and everything like that. So I remember when we saw Captain Marvel and like they turned out like to be like good in this, film or whatever, I was just like, that kind of threw me for a loop because I was like, oh, like they're supposed to be, bad guys or whatever, like in the universe. But Marvel, that's one of the things that which I really like as a fan is they do a good job of they don't they don't take everything exactly from the comics and just like bring it right to film. They adapt things, so they'll take like pieces and stuff like that. And I think that's good because it keeps fans on their toes. Because otherwise, if you had read all the comics, it's like, oh well, I know exactly everything that's going to happen.
exactly. Like I said, Marvel loves this stuff. So they're definitely in my opinion, what I've seen. They're definitely trying to give you, the audience, you, the fans, everything you want. Even if they add a little twist to it, they want to give you everything you want, everything you're waiting for. They know their stuff. They're on top of it.
Yeah.
That they're on top of it. Like they take very good notes and keep track of where everything is as far as telling the story. Everything connects.
Yep.
Have you know everything, and it beautifully, beautifully.
Blows my mind. Like, just I can't even, like, as trying, like, putting myself in like the mindset of like a writer, as far as some of these films and stuff like that goes. I can't even imagine trying to work on a project and be like, okay, we got to make sure that this connects to like this movie, and like this character did this in this movie. So the level of detail is like insane.
It's insanity. Yes, I love it, but it's because they love it.
Yeah,
It's definitely love
and
it.
you can
Yes.
tell for sure.
Oh
Now,
yeah.
fast forward, a few years, from that, and I heard that Marvel actually reached out to you to reprise your role as like a Skrull for WandaVision. And the story is definitely, interesting. So can you just, for those who aren't like familiar, can you just kind of give a little bit of background as far as like how that came about?
Wow. Yes. So we're in the middle of a pandemic last summer. Everyone's just trying to survive, and Hollywood itself took the biggest hits. If you notice, Tom Hanks, The Rock, massive actors were kind of getting hit left and right. So it was kind of like, hey, we need to take this a lot more serious, than we think, because we're getting affected by this virus. So Hollywood shut down immediately. Like there was no work coming in or out. So at that point, I wasn't expecting pretty much anything. I was just kind of like, living my life, doing what I had to do to survive COVID and the pandemic. So um, the actual company that called me before, which wasn't my agent, they were just an agency. They contacted me and they were like, hey, we have some people looking for you. Would you be interested in reprising some things? And I thought, huh? And they were like, they didn't say Marvel per se, but they kind of alluded to the fact that it was them. So they said, you've worked in Captain Marvel before. Would you be willing to reprise your character of where you were in Captain Marvel? And initially I said no. I turned it down. I told the casting people no. And that was because of some things that had come about with their marketing. It had nothing to do with Marvel, but it was definitely the company I went through before. So they had done some things that weren't necessarily in my favor before. So I didn't want to, of course, link back up with them. That's what I thought they were offering me. But they said, here's the email, the address, all the information, and it's your choice. So I kind of thought about it a few days, and it's like, hello, this is Marvel. Like, what are you, what are you doing? Like, wake up, come on, So I called them, contact them, and was like, hey, this is Lori Livingston. I got your information. Here's my resume, headshot, everything. And within a day or two, I got a script with my name on it, NDA to sign, to secrecy, and we were well on our way and auditioning and getting the part and moving forward. So yeah.
Yeah. I remember, like, I had like heard about it, but yeah, just like the fact that you said initially you were kind of like no, which, like, like what you were saying makes sense because of experiences that like had happened with that, like before, like why you would initially say that, but then like afterwards being like, well, this is Marvel. It's like, when am I gonna get like this chance like again? But I just thought that that's such a fascinating story, because I feel like that's something that it doesn't happen like all the time. Like you don't have a studio or whatever specifically seeking out, be like, hey, you want to come back and like reprise like this character. So that I mean, that's just such a wild story to me.
Mind blown. Like mind blown. Marvel doesn't have to come looking for anyone. So for that to happen for me was literally like humbling in itself. And I think a part of me turning it down, I didn't believe it, because it's Marvel. Like who
Yeah.
does that? So I was like, yeah, okay, all right. Marvel, all right,
Yeah,
but
no, I could definitely like see that too. Because I mean, if like if Marvel like came to like me and it was like, hey, like you want to be like an actor in like this movie, and I'd be like, yeah, it's not Marvel. That's like
I,
somebody else or whatever. So I can
right,
totally see that side of things like as well. Um,
yes.
when you initially got the role, did they tell you like not only like did you know that you were going to be in the finale, and then on top of that, did you also know ahead of time that not only were you going to be in the finale, but your role was going to be one of the infamous, like, mid-credit scenes, and it was going to be setting up, bigger things to come in the MCU.
I literally knew absolutely nothing. If there's anything that we definitely know about Marvel, Marvel is extremely top secret on everything. So that includes even us many times as actors. So what they'll do is they'll give you your information that you know, and you'll know just that. Literally just
Day
that.
of, or basically like day before or something.
Oh yeah. So when I showed up to set to work that day, because it was later, it was months later that I actually started working. We shot in like in October or sometime around then. But once I got to set and started working, again, I knew just what just what they placed in front of me. I didn't know who the characters were because by that point the actors had already pretty much finished the show. Like they had been working on it for months. They were just like they were trying to wrap this up.
Yeah.
COVID had big monkey wrench into all of our plans, and they were just trying to like, okay, let's finish this. So by the time I got there, everyone knew everyone but me. So I'm like this new kid. I'm like this new kid on the block. I show up and everyone's kind of looking at me like, who are you? What are you doing? Because of course initially I showed up as myself.
Yeah.
And they were just like, what are you doing? And I couldn't tell them anything. I didn't know, so I'm like, yeah, I'm just kind of here. Here's my script, here's what I say. So yeah, it was very top secret. I knew literally nothing. But as we began to shoot it, and of course Matt Shackman, he's an amazing guy. I mean, like, first of all, he's the closest to Stan Lee I'm gonna get. So just meeting him was incredible. And we shot, of course, the first day without the prosthetics, and then of course the next time we shot was the prosthetics. So for his reaction when he saw me come in, it kind of threw me a little bit because like on Captain Marvel, there were Skrulls everywhere. We were literally, it was like Skrull Central, we were everywhere. It was us, it was the stuntmen, the body doubles, everybody was green. So it was all over the place. Right. But I come to this set and I'm the only one that's green. So, and none of these people, they didn't work. The crew didn't work on Captain Marvel. So they've never seen it before up close. They'd only seen it in the movie. So, of course, we had COVID restrictions. We couldn't touch each other, but of course, they wanted to touch the prosthetics and things like that. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
I imagine. So, like, like, what was like when you found out? Because I mean, it was probably like the day before, like the day of that. It's like you're well, like, because at that point, obviously, you knew like you were like in like the finale, but like once you found out that you were gonna be in like one of the like mid-credit scenes and just kind of like teeing up some things to happen in the future, like what was your reaction then?
I kind of figured it out as the season started. So when we shoot, we just shoot.
Yeah.
We come to our job, done, thank you, and we leave. I knew it was the end of the episode. I knew it was the end of the season because we wrapped, we congratulate everyone for a season well done. So I knew it was the end. So basically once the show started airing, and I started seeing like they were way back in like the 50s, the whole I Love Lucy, and and I'm looking at it myself like, what is this? So then we're kind of transitioning to the the 60s and the 70s, and I'm kind of like, okay, like, so I kind of started to figure out I'm not going to be until probably the end. Probably the last scene is what I thought. So I had no idea until once we got towards the very, very end of like literally, I was watching it like everyone else. So as the episodes were coming, as we got to the very last scene or the last episode, or I'm sorry, second to last episode, that's when I knew I'm going to be in one of these end credits. Then it was like that light bulb. I'm like, okay. And of course I couldn't say anything. I'm sworn to secrecy. I'm watching the entire season. Everyone's coming up with all these conspiracy theories. Okay, this person's a Skrull and that person's definitely a Skrull. And I'm sitting there like, that was both fun, intriguing, and painfully hard to just stay.
That was something I was going to ask you, being, obviously like an actor, like on this project, and then, just your role specifically being such a big spoiler. So I can't imagine just like how challenging it was. Like obviously, like you have the NDA and all that stuff, but like how challenging it was to hear all this like chatter and stuff like that. And like this show, I mean, I'm sure you probably like, saw some of the amount of like theories, and I did this like myself too, but the amount of like theories and like, speculation and stuff like that was like absolutely insane. Did you have like, other than like, this person was like a scroll, was there any other theories that was like your favorite one that you remember seeing people talking about leading up to like the end?
God, there was like Magneto's gonna come, and and all kinds of. I think a couple of conspiracies was Captain Marvel's gonna show, or something. It was like all kinds. They were everywhere. They were all over the place. And honestly, even when we were shooting, they were kind of all over the place. Like they were kind of telling me like, hey, you're gonna connect with this person and that person. I'm like, really? Like it was constant speculation all over the place. So. It was funny to watch, but again, I couldn't say anything. No one knew who I was. No
Yeah.
one knew. So like my closest friends and family had no idea anything. So I'm sitting there just kind of like this. Oh yeah, WandaVision. Are you watching the show? Yeah, yeah, cool. Just trying to stay back. But not only the NDA would I stay silent about it, but I want people to have exactly what happened. I want that reaction. I want people to be completely captivated and enthralled in this, So it was easy to remain quiet because I want this to go over exactly the way it went over.
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to be the person who spoiled anything.
And it was, yeah, and it was wild. But that was one of the things that was especially, so fun with the show that I really enjoyed, was just like the level of like fan speculation and theorizing. Because, and it was nice because it was, which I thought was interesting, that Marvel and like Disney's been doing it with Disney Plus, but like the week to week schedule instead of like the all at like one time. And so I thought that made it really fun, because I remember like before we kind of had like, Netflix and stuff like that, TV shows that are just like on cable, you had to wait like that week before, like in between episodes. So I think that whole aspect of it, it just makes it so much fun, because you're like, you have all this discussion leading up until like the next episode, and it just kind of keeps people talking. So yeah, the Magneto, like I remember like the Magneto, like Mephisto was like another one that a lot of people were like talking about. So but yeah, it was a lot of fun. So I can't imagine
Yes,
you
yes.
having to just sit there and be like, can't say anything.
Could say nothing. Literally just watched everyone, just watch all the conspiracy theories. And honestly, I watched the show myself. It was unfolding for me as it was for everyone else. It was literally unfolding, so I'm kind of like going along with the story just like everyone else. Like, this is insane. Like, okay, why are we in the 50s? Why are we in the 60s? Where are we? Okay. Oh, okay. Now that makes sense. This person, okay, I remember you. And so I was piecing the stories together as well. Even when we were shooting, Tiana Parrish, who played Monica Rambeau,
Yep.
she and I were piecing our stories together as well. So we were all trying to make sense of everything. Like we literally were just shooting. So she was trying to tell me, where she was coming from, who she was, where she's going, and of course I'm sharing with her the same thing, who I was, where I'm going, So we kind of put pieces of the puzzle together ourselves. And then of course watching the show helped even more.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you too, just as far as working with both her and Randall Park, but specifically with Tiana, just because this was kind of like her big breakout, on this show, like as well, because like we had Monica Rambeau and Captain Marvel, but like she was a kid, so we get to see her as like an adult, and then she ended up getting her powers like in the show. So what was your experience like working with her, and then like Randall Park? I know it was a little bit more brief with like him, but just like working with those guys.
Intimidating. Not because they're intimidating, but because I was intimidated. Like, I've seen Randall Park forever. I've been watching him for years. So to see him the first time I came on set, it was like the interaction, as you saw, where I come up and I walk up to her. That was my first time, my first day on set. So I'm nervous. Like, I'm just like, oh my gosh, and like, again, there was no real rehearsal. We just dove right into shooting. So I'm like shooting with these people, and I'm like, I remember you, I remember you, just kind of recognizing faces. They were both incredible. They were both amazingly supportive. Randall, very nice. He pretty much just kind of welcomed me. Again, I was that new face on set. So it was like, who are you? He was like, hey, welcome. How are you? I'm Randall, just very polite. Tiana, we ended up, of course, shooting a second scene, which was the scene where we were together in the theater.
Mhm.
And, that's when we kind of sat down and just shared our stories. We shared just kind of our history in Hollywood, just the hard work that we had to do to get to where we were today. And as we were shooting, you couldn't see her face, but as I'm talking to her in the scene, she was like congratulating me and just kind of like, yeah, like you're doing, of course, the audience can't see that, but I'm looking at her, watching her do that.
Yeah.
That meant me. That meant the world because she's congratulating me. She was literally cheering me on in that scene. As I was shooting that scene, I knew this is going to be a big deal. This is just by her reaction, by Matt's reaction, this is going to be a big deal. Right up to the finger point, everything, I knew this is definitely, yeah, this is going to be massive.
Yeah, setting up some, like I said, setting up some like big moments. Like obviously we and everything's gonna be like kept under wraps, I'm sure, for like a little bit until we kind of start seeing some of these shows. But I mean, I was like thinking about it the other day. I was like, man, like we could see you possibly pop up in Secret Invasion. We could see you possibly pop up in Captain Marvel 2, Miss Marvel, like because I think they're really, from everything that I've seen, kind of as far as like the way the MCU is going, they're obviously starting to go a lot more like the cosmic route and stuff like that. So I mean, and that
Yeah,
that really just kind of like opens up the world as far as like possibilities for you show up. So I mean, that must be very exciting.
it is. It's possible for all of us because, excuse me, the Marvel world right now is all interchangeable. So I mean, we could pop up in movies, we could pop up in the TV shows, we could pop up in the end credits anywhere. As the end credits, anyone could be in those. So at this point, Marvel has just made, to me, they've just expanded the universe even more than it already was. So you never know where any of us could pop up anywhere.
And I think too with obviously we don't know, they've released some details as far as like Doctor Strange and Spider-Man and stuff like that we've heard, but we obviously know like the multiverse is coming up. So I mean that even just opens the things up even more, because not only is it just like the one character, but like you could show up in like 4 or 5 whatever number of different like characters variations across like the universe. So it's
Exactly.
definitely exciting.
It's definitely not getting any smaller. It's
Yeah.
certainly much bigger, yes. So
No.
I mean, I think it's an exciting time, not only for Marvel, it's an exciting time for actors in Marvel, and it's an exciting time for fans, because you're gonna, just all I can say is stay tuned. You're gonna get some pretty amazing things coming down the road. Stay tuned.
Did you find you said you came in obviously towards the end of, when they were kind of like wrapping things up for like the show like WandaVision. Did you find it, like, obviously like you mentioned, being like a little like intimidated? Did you find it challenging? Because I've talked to people about this before where, you came in towards the end where everyone had already been kind of working for like, months at this time. Did you find that like challenging coming into a role like that?
It was because people, on set, period, Marvel, any set, you develop a rhythm.
Yeah.
you know kind of has their has their place. Everyone's kind of, by that point, especially at the end, oh my gosh, you're like a fine-tuned machine. Like you have, everybody knows, they're clicking, they're popping, they're going. So by the time I showed up, it was like I'm trying to slide into that rhythm, make no waves, and be just as compelling. That was my biggest concern. I wanted to deliver a powerful moment, just as powerful as I knew they had already been delivering. I didn't want to be the one to mess this up, so to say. I wanted to definitely be as strong, as powerful, and go out with a bang. So to have their respect at the end, once this aired, and to have a lot of the actors, kind of contact me like, girl, that was a wow, like that meant the world to me, to have my, and like I said, to have Tiana herself. I mean, she was like, yeah, like you couldn't see this, but I mean, like as I'm speaking, as I'm dialoguing with her, she's literally like, yes, so like that made it all worth it. That made it all worth it. Like it's like winning the it's like scoring the winning shot, and you
Yeah.
have that on to score that shot, and if you don't get it, of course, you feel like you suck. That's exactly how it felt. Like, I have to win this, I have to get this shot, I have to get this right.
when she was doing that, like, cause like obviously, like, she's doing it to like encourage you, but was it hard? Like, cause she's like over there, she's like, yeah, like, you're killing it or whatever. Was it hard to keep focus and like with her like
No,
doing
no, I needed it. Like I was so like my lips were quivering. Like under- underneath those prosthetics and all that makeup, like I was just like teeth chattering, scared. Like I got it at that moment. I knew this is big, like this is massive. So I feel like a lot of the people around me, like I said, they had already been doing this. They were like, all right, let's cheer on, and they didn't have to, of course, but they were definitely very, very supportive, and I think they knew I was nervous. I think they could pick up like, whoa, this that's like a lot to have on your shoulders as the newbie.
Yeah, I
So
would say, especially for someone like you said, they all knew that you were new because, like, they didn't recognize you. So, that's really cool. I mean, I feel like I have heard that, from quite a few of like, the Marvel sets. It seems like it's kind of like a really close knit, like family. So they seem to be pretty welcoming of any like, newcomers that come to the sets.
yes, they are. Yes, very much so. Extremely. They they love, they support, they make you feel comfortable, very comfortable, and that's how I felt the entire time. I
And
felt like
you mentioned a little bit, like briefly, about just like, could you just tell us, about your experience also working with Matt Shackman? I know you mentioned like he sounded like he was awesome, but just like your overall experience with him.
awesome. My first time officially meeting him was, of course, on day one,
Mm,
and as we were shooting, uh, we were outside, and he didn't really make himself too present to me. Like he came up, hey, I'm Matt. This is what we're gonna do. Stand here, do this. So I was like, okay. And of course, my concern was get it right. I don't want to be here all day. We're not gonna do take after take after take. Let's get this right. So I didn't really interact with him as much on day one, but like the assistant directors, like the people that were kind of around, they were very interactive and very supportive, very friendly. So it wasn't until day two when, okay, so the way we shot it was I came in both as the human being,
mhm.
and I also came in as the Skrull. So we shot literally, all of that all in one day. So when I came back the second day, Matt comes up to me like I'm walking into the set, like this is the first time we were shooting. So you see me walk in speaking as the human being.
Yep.
I'm prepared to shoot that scene. And he comes up and he's just like, you're awesome. I'm like, no, dude, you're awesome. He's like, no, you're awesome. We're like, you're awesome. No, you are. And like that right there, that for me was just like the icing on the cake. Like he was super sweet. He gave all of us, I have something I can show you really quick.
Yeah.
he gave um he gave all of us gifts. So like a part of the gifts was like some socks, some
Oh,
WandaVision socks. And
I am jealous. Those are awesome.
yeah. And it says, from this is the WandaVision LA crew. He gave us chocolate. He gave us gifts. It's like a gift package on the way out. As a thank you. Super super friendly. He's a great guy. He's like a kid. Like again, when I go back to Marvel, kind of seeing us as human toys. That's how I felt. I felt like we're like all Matt's little toys, and he's playing with his toys and bringing together a brilliant story. He's a genius, and it was an honor to work with him. Again, he was the closest I'm going to get to Stan Lee. I missed him. Stan Lee was alive when we shot Captain Marvel,
Yep.
but the scene that he appeared in when he made his cameo, I wasn't in that scene, so
Uh,
I wasn't there. That I did miss him. Yeah, I just missed him, but this is the next best thing.
Speaking of though, which I don't know if like if you had like saw which, and I think it was kind of like people were like speculating, but I think they, obviously they don't have any like footage to like show of him, but I want to say, and I can't remember what episode it was, but I think it was the one where God, it was like the Modern Family. So I'm trying to think the exact episode number, but like the Modern Family, like Office kind of take. So it was almost kind of like the later 2000s. And in the beginning, when it was doing like the intro, there was a part where it showed a license plate, and on the top it said like, I'm gonna get his birth date wrong, but it was the birth date of Stan Lee, and people were like, "Oh, that's like his like birthday." So I'm assuming that was like a Stan Lee like cameo like Easter egg, which is really cool that they were able to to throw that in there for him, because obviously, I mean, the man's
I
behind like everything.
I'm blown away by the fan. Like you are on it, man. You guys see so you see things that we're just like, what? Yep, that was there? Like where? Like a lot of times, like I said, we come in and we do our job. We're
Yeah,
just like we're doing. But more than likely, yes. I feel like there's always going to be some sort of tribute to him. This is just my own opinion. I
yeah,
feel like there's always gonna be some sort of tribute to him, and rightfully so. Because without him, we there would be no us. In many ways. So I feel like they're always going to sprinkle in something. I just find it absolutely fascinating that the fans always find it. Marvel fans are the best. I'm sorry, hands down, they're like the best people. Like seriously, I love the Marvel fans.
yeah. No, it's crazy, and that was the thing that I was talking to you about it, that with this show, the level of detail, and I'm super excited because I'm a big person. That's why I love doing this stuff, talking to you guys as far as getting kind of the behind the scenes stories and stuff like that. But I found out that they're releasing a the Art of book. So they're releasing a WandaVision one, and it's coming out I think in like August. I can't wait to get that because I, like myself, I love going into all those behind the scenes, details and stuff like that. The Just going from the different sitcoms and all the detail that like went into that, that stuff to me is just like as fascinating as just like the show as like a whole. So the level of detail you guys put into this is just like insane, and it pays off for us fans because we get to pick out all those little things along the way.
Did you see the behind the scenes? I'm not sure if it aired yet. The behind the scenes one.
Oh
Okay,
yeah,
yes,
oh yeah,
yes.
day one I watched that. Yeah,
The detail.
that was
It's incredible. And these sets are amazing. Just based, like I said, I only saw so much of WandaVision, which was the town and of course the theater, but
mm,
just based set from Captain Marvel, that was a real spaceship that we were in.
yeah,
You know, like it was really crafted out. We were literally in like this stage, that was completely purple with dots all over the place. And we were in this, this craft, like the metro scene when we were in the metro scene with Captain Marvel, that was a real metro. It was a real car, on a track. So it didn't go very far. It just kind of moved just a little bit.
yeah.
Still, the detail that they put into everything in Marvel is top notch, top notch. Like
Speaking kind of like with the detail too, and we mentioned a little bit about it, just the specifically for like these two projects, because like obviously like now that they're out can kind of like talk about it, but one of the things we mentioned was the level of the level of secrecy, I should say, as far as like what goes into like a Marvel project. Can you just kind of speak to like your experience? Like, what was there any like crazy things that you guys had to do while working on like the sets to avoid people like spying on you guys or anything?
um I know for a fact, like when I auditioned, I had to audition by myself. Like I like typically in an audition, especially when you have someone kind of offsetting you,
Yeah,
like you're speaking to someone. Um, Typically you're gonna have somebody recording it, you're gonna have somebody speaking, their lines to you so you can feed your lines. And I couldn't do that. I had to do everything on my own, like that level of secrecy.
what
Even
else?
specifically on Captain Marvel on set, I know we were wearing cloaks, we were, covered up, just to get to and from places. We remain covered up, especially like specific, characters are going to remain covered up,
Yeah,
so that you don't see. I mean, there is paparazzi, there are uh, things, people trying to get those little secret shots, the winning shot, so to say. So you just play along, you do your part, and you kind of go along with it. If you want me to walk around in a cardboard box, we're going to walk around in a cardboard box, like whatever it takes to
yeah,
keep the secret, we're going to do it. Yes, Marvel goes above and beyond, but in a way that's not, it's not ridiculous. It's very just, all right, here, this is what we're going to do,
yeah.
keep it a secret. They really kind of expect and respect us to just kind of keep the Marvel world secret.
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
they,
and that's understandable. It's just more fun for everyone gets to see it when it comes out too. Nothing gets like spoiled. So, kind of just start, to wrap things up. What obviously this was like an amazing, experience, for you. what's going to be the biggest thing that you take from, from working like on WandaVision, kind of going forward?
Matt Jackman. Working with Matt Jackman. I mean, it's WandaVision. It's the whole thing. It's literally the entire thing. Like the kid in me is just like, oh my God, like freaking out, just like my brothers and my family. Like, oh my God, you did it, but it's Marvel, you know. There are big name actors right now who aren't even in the Marvel universe in the MCU. So I don't take this lightly. I take this very seriously. It's an honor. It's a huge honor. I look forward to definitely doing much more with them and just kind of moving forward from here. This is huge. This is something that will go down in history. Not only being the first and the only female African American female who is a Skrull. That's something my kids, my grandkids. I want them to be proud of.
Yeah.
That's something Hollywood will always be. You can't take that away from me. So I that alone is just
No, that's
went on.
that's incredible, and I'm happy for you, just like myself, like person to person. That's really cool. Something like you said, you're always going to be able to hold on to, and generations down the line will be etched in history. So that's really cool. Is there anything else that you want to just say to like the fans, like in general? Is there any where people can follow or find you, like on social media and stuff like that?
Yes. I'm Lori Livingston. I'm across the board, Lori Livingston. It's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, yes, TikTok.
Everywhere.
I didn't say Instagram, but yes. So yes, across the board. I do usually speak to people. I usually interact, try to, of course, I'm not giving any secrets away, but I definitely usually try to interact with everyone and just give that respect to everyone. But yeah, I'm continuing to be an actor here in Hollywood. I have other things that I'm doing. I'm still a professional model, so I can pretty much pop up anywhere at this point.
Yeah, guys, don't go asking Lori if she can give away any kind of spoilers. Unfortunately, she can't do that, but she's an awesome person. I just want to say thank you again, so much, Lori, for taking the time out of your schedule. I know you're busy for, to come on the show and just talk about your career and talk about, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Pat. I really appreciate it. And much continued success to you in your career, of course, and your show.
Thank
How
you.
awesome. What you're doing for the MCU, for the Marvel world is appreciated. So thank you. Hi, this is Lori Livingston. I play Skrull Agent on WandaVision in credit. And you are watching Pop Culture with Pat.